What's going on, my trainer club? Today we are going to give you something different that I have never done before for you guys. I'm going to give you my top tips to help keep you healthy throughout any season that you are going to go through. So welcome to the trainer club. Here we go. Welcome back, everybody. Let me know in the comments below, how are you guys doing on your shiny Giratina, shiny Machop, and shiny fighting Pokemon hunting, as well as the Go Battle League. Can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about that. So today, we are not going to be covering Pokemon. We are going to be covering something that has been with me for quite a while from my past life and my current life as well. And thank you to Holly for putting out her video. If you guys haven't seen Holly's story, it's been absolutely amazing. And since we are now dealing with the coronavirus, I haven't directly addressed it. So this is going to be a video that I am going to go over a little bit of my past story, and then I'm going to give you some of my top tips to help keep you healthy, because having a healthy body and healthy immune system is the best preventative measure for anything that's going to be thrown at you in life, which comes with preparation, proactiveness, and being prepared for anything that could be coming at you. So before we get into everything, I just want to let you guys know that in my Discord, I am going to run a 30-day health challenge. So for anybody out there that is looking to get healthier, more supported in their body, their systems, and everything like that, the tips are going to be pinned in the comments below. So if you don't care to see my story and hear why I am so passionate about health, you can go ahead and skip to where my tips are and go ahead and pick one of those tips to help you guys start getting healthy in the new year. I'm going to be giving away 3 prizes. We're going to get some pins, some beanies, and then I'm going to give away a $50 Whole Foods gift card so that you guys can start making healthier choices where your food counts. So let's get into that Discord. Now let's get into my story, and then we'll get into my top tips. Here we go. So starting off, I'm gonna give you guys some scenarios throughout my entire life so you guys can start opening your horizons and seeing how compounding life scenarios are going to be towards getting you to where you are at right now. Because in reality, where you're sitting right now, whether they are conscious or unconscious choices, they have been a cumulative effect of where you are currently at, whether that be your health, your finances, your scenario, where you live, whatever that situation is, it's mostly able to be changed if you so desire. So I hope that this video can give you some direction, some new insights, and maybe some new thought processes that you guys may have not seen before, that's going to help you reroute your life if you so desire, which I hope you guys do if it is something that you do desire to become a little bit more healthy, a little bit more secure, a little bit more confident, and a little bit more proactive in your life and feeling a little bit more at peace. So I'm going to go all the way back to my birth, then we're going to go through a couple scenarios and situations throughout my life, all the way until my early 20s when I got pretty sick. You guys did see the thumbnails. So that's going to be where we get to, and then we're going to transition into what my top tips are. So starting off, I was a C-section, and I know some of you guys may not think this, but regular births are a great way to populate our body's ability to digest, assimilate foods, have a healthy immune system from the gut flora from the mom. So having a healthy birth is actually a pretty effective way to transfer health from the mom to the baby. And I know some of you guys may be like, I was a C-section as well. Well, good news. We can change all these things that we're gonna go over, so do not be alarmed, right? This is all changeable, but we're gonna have to work on it to be able to change it. So C-section, which causes a little bit of stress, right? I actually was pushed too early, so I was not able to go through the birthing canal, and I was having to take out as an emergency C-section. So starting off as a toddler, having a jarred nervous system, being a little bit under duress is probably not the best way to come into the world, right? And a lot of you guys may be in the same scenario, so do not worry, we can change this around. And throughout my childhood, I happened to have a bunch of different sicknesses. So when I believe it was when I was in 4th grade, I came down with pneumonia. I was constantly getting strep throat. And the reason why I'm telling you guys about all these sicknesses is because when you guys are under stress, fight or flight scenario, similar to what we talked about with my birth, it can alter the way your body's able to handle additional stress. Your body is in flight or fight mode. It's either flight or fight. When you do that, your body doesn't digest well, it doesn't sleep well, which I had trouble with throughout my entire childhood. I was constantly waking up with nightmares and everything like that. Very, very poor at sleeping. I'm super grateful that I was able to turn that around, because I absolutely love to sleep. Also, you're able to handle a lot less as far as immune stressors when we're talking about the flu, when we're talking about other things. I was constantly getting those things, strep throats, pneumonia I had, and that took me out of school for 3 weeks, and every year it was happening around the same time. I would get taken out of school for about 2 to 3 weeks every single year, and it just kept going all the way until I started smoking pot when I was 16 years old. And I know some of you guys out there may be smoking pot, but from my scenario, I basically was doing that all the way until I was 18 years old. And at 18 years old, I accumulated so much, I would say, toxins from smoking pot in my system that I was starting to have massive panic attacks. And typically when you think of smoking pot, it's the opposite thing that happens to you. And I'm being a lot more open with you guys now than I have been ever before. So I did that and I started having panic attacks. I went into the hospital and I was done. I couldn't smoke pot anymore because it was doing that. And so what you would normally think is you would just stop doing things, but I have a little bit of an obsessive personality. That's how I got so good at the game. So I decided instead of smoking pot, I was now going to start drinking. So that was when college started. I started drinking a little bit through my early college years, which led me all the way until I was 21 years old when I had a breakup with my 3.5 years at the time girlfriend. This scenario is number one check. So when we get sick and we have like crisis scenarios, typically in the natural health world, we think of them as multiple different insults to the body. So this is going to be an emotional insult, right? You have a big relationship where whatever the scenarios of that were in play, right? It was affecting my emotional health. And then we had coming right after that, right? Since I'm a little bit compromised from the emotional health, whether I realized it or not, 2 months later, I then came down with mono. And mono is definitely a sickness and a scenario where you're quite compromised. You are very tired. And I was extremely tired because previous to that, I had been smoking a lot of pot. I had been drinking a lot. So my body had definitely had quite a bit of abuse on it. And then going right into there, I had mono. And actually I had a lymph node on my neck that was pretty swollen, about an M&M's peanut size. And I had been working out pretty hard at the time. So I thought I'd just kind of like strain my neck, maybe doing some bench press or whatever. I go to my school doctor, and I was definitely not holistic and I didn't take care of myself. I understood like to eat a little bit better, eat your greens, but I didn't quite understand the depth of it. So once I got to the doctor, he was like, okay, it's definitely strep throat. And I've had strep throat so many times. I know it's an easy culture to make sure and confirm that that's what it is. So I said, hey doc, why don't we just culture this just to make sure? And he's like, no, I'm positive. You can go ahead and take this penicillin. So he writes me a script. And I start taking the penicillin, and 2 days later, I woke up, and this is where you guys are gonna see the thumbnail. So if you do not want to see these scenarios, you could definitely skip right over it. But I woke up full body sweats, my entire body was itching. I couldn't like sleep. This was like 3 a.m. and I was just like, something's not right. So I go back to the doctor and I was like, hey doc, like I woke up this morning, I was starting to turn like a little bit red. I was feeling nauseous, and I was like, I think that something's going on. And he's like, oh, you have mono. And so when you have mono, it heightens your liver enzymes. And the way that the penicillin reacts with the liver enzymes is not conducive to happen in that scenario. So the penicillin basically gave me an allergic reaction. So 2 days later, I was in the hospital because I couldn't keep any food down. I was talking in my sleep. I could barely sleep. I was so exhausted from the mono, and then I had a reaction at the same time right at the beginning of the mono. So I was just done. And so thankfully I was able to come out of that. My entire face was puffy. My entire body turned a deep blood red. And my skin was itching, my skin was flaking, as you guys can see in the pictures right here. It was not a fun scenario at all. It was actually quite scary, more from the physical as well as the mental aspects of that. At the same time, when I was working out, like I told you guys, I had an umbilical cord hernia, which is basically when you're born, you have your umbilical cord. And if it's not properly snipped, I guess you would say, and it doesn't close all the way, what can happen is you can have like a pin-sized hole in your belly button basically. And as you work out and are vigorous, which I was a competitive skateboarder, so I did a ton of exercise, very, very competitive skateboarder, and definitely not eating the proper food during that time to adequately recover from being an athlete. That is absolutely certain. Like athletes need such a high quality amount of dietary needs to be able to fulfill everything that's going on. I did not do that. We were skateboarding for like 6 to 8 hours per day, like almost every single day. So I was highly active. And then additionally, the umbilical cord hernia, it basically felt like somebody was pulling something through my belly button, which happened to be my fascia, which is basically like a balloon that goes over the top of your muscles to protect everything. And so what was happening is the fascia was getting tugged into my belly button. And so I went to the doctor and I was like, hey doctor, like this is really weird. Like I don't know what's happening. It just feels like I'm getting pulled through my belly button. And they're like, oh, well you have an umbilical cord hernia surgery, because they basically pushed on my belly button. It was like super sensitive. So they happened to schedule my surgery, and why I'm telling you guys this, because this is gonna be the third insult that really tanked me. And I know you guys are thinking like, okay, mono's gonna tank you, but we get worse than this. And so after this scenario, 3 months in, I could barely go to school in college. This was my junior year. I got out of school in about mid-March. I was able to make it mid-May just to show up to take my finals. That's how extremely exhausted I was. And then 1 month later in June, I was scheduled and approved to have an umbilical cord hernia surgery. Had I known better at the time, I wouldn't have accepted that, because when you get anesthesia, it is a toxin. Your body has to purify that through your liver. My liver was already compromised from the mono. It already had heightened elevated liver enzymes, although they did do the test and it did come back okay. Knowing better now, I would definitely suggest pushing that out for myself at that time. So I didn't know any better, but I went ahead for that surgery and they did a great job. Doc did a great job. However, one of the sutures wasn't sitting properly, and so I had to go under again. So that's gonna be 2 anesthesias back to back. And then I decided it was a good idea to start drinking again, which I did. And then I happened to go to Miami, and we were with some friends in Miami, and we were at a like little bar area and having drinks. And I don't drink anymore. I don't do any drugs or anything like that. But at the time we were all drinking, and I think I was 22. And we were with a couple girlfriends and a couple of my guy friends, and me and my friend, Chris, happened to have like a big drink, and we sat it on the table by our whole crew, went to the front of the stage at this little outside bar area, and came back and drank the drink. And it happened to be that the drink was sitting in between 2 of our girlfriends that were there, and somebody tried to roofie them. However, the roofie didn't make it to them, fortunately for them. Unfortunately for myself and Chris, we both drank a roofie. And so I started feeling really weird, so I started walking across the street right on Ocean Drive, if you guys have ever been to South Beach, Miami, and there's the beach right there. So I made it onto the beach, and I just passed out, face planted into the sand, and I was completely passed out. And the only thing I can consciously remember is somehow getting into a taxi cab and throwing $70, I remember specifically that I had $70, at him, which was probably like a $20 ride. And I was just like, you need to get me to this hotel. And I left all my stuff there. My parents were in a panic because somebody picked up my phone and said, hey, we found your son. He was passed out on the beach, which any parents out there, I'm sure that you guys could resonate with that scenario. And now his stuff is here, but he's no longer here. So a little bit later, I was then found passed out in the rocks out front of the hotel, and then I woke up and started coming back to consciousness sitting out front of my hotel room looking up at a surrounding of hotel workers telling me I could not sleep in the hallway. And at that point, I was like so done. My friends happened to go to Fort Lauderdale that day, which was like a 2-hour drive, so they were nowhere near us, and I did not have my key card to get into the room because I looked at it. I didn't follow my intuition, which I think is so incredibly important. And I said, you know, something was telling me you need this key card today. And in reality, I said, no, thank you. Like, I just don't need it because you guys are going to be here. But Chris got roofied and was passed out at a friend's place. And then my other 2 friends that had the key cards were 2 hours away. And so that happened. I basically barely slept the whole night. I felt miserable coming home, and I was just so tanked out after that. And you would think that would be enough. But then I happened to move to Florida. Think about all these situations combined, right? Like I'm talking about, it's all combinations. And I was working out and doing my thing, and I was starting to feel a little bit anxious at this point. I was starting to feel a little bit depressed. My energy was a little bit off. I didn't feel like myself anymore. And I happened to go into a skate park. My number 1 rule for myself was always do not work out before you skateboard, because when you work out, you create some type of trauma in your bones. A little bit. That's why your bones get stronger when you work out. So then your body then creates more bone density from that. But right after the workout, you have a little bit trauma in your bones. And so I happened to go into the skate park. I was just warming up. I went up on this ramp, up 1, up 2, and it was 2 ramps stuck together like this. And I came back down and it kicked me out. And I have been skateboarding for over 12 years at this point, so I'm very comfortable on a skateboard, but the ramp, it just kicked me out weird, and I put my arm straight down and I completely fractured, and it was sitting at about a, I don't know, 70-degree angle, not 90 degrees, but it was pretty broken. Literally been in the park for 30 seconds, and then I had anesthesia to set it again. Fortunately, I did not have any pins to put into myself. That is gonna be the third insult after the detoxification needed to get off all that anesthesia, combined with the mono, combined with the emotional insult, and then we just had Billy just completely tanked. I was completely out of everything. I had severe anxiety, severe depression. I could barely care for myself. I had no energy, and I was done. And so now I'm like, I gotta go to a doctor and get myself fixed, right? Like, that's the first case scenario. And according to my lab results, everybody was like, you're perfectly healthy. And I was like, wait a second, like, I have these scenarios going on. There's nothing really that's telling me that I'm depressed or anxious. There wasn't anything that was crazy that happened to me emotionally. Like, granted, I did break up with my girlfriend, but I first saw that coming for a little bit of time. And it was just really confusing for me. And so I went to a couple different doctors, all with the same blood work, all with the same results. And finally, I was starting to get a little frustrated. The last doctor was like, hey, you should go to a psychologist because your blood is fine. You're obviously needing some type of mental medication in order to get you through this. And so I went to the psychologist or the psychiatrist. I got my medications, and it was Zoloft, and he prescribed that to me, and I thought about it. And I was like, this is really weird. So I called one of my friends at the time and I was like, hey, like, I'm kind of anxious about taking this medication, just doesn't feel right for me. And they're like, so you're anxious about being anxious about medication? And I was like, yeah, it kind of sounds a little weird, but that's the scenario. So I did not decide to take the medication because I didn't feel like that was the right scenario for me. And I felt like there was an underlying cause that I needed to find. And then so I was like, I'm gonna find a different way. So we started looking in different places, and my mom found a newspaper that had an ad for nutrition consultations from a local chiropractor. And that was the first person that ever looked at me and said, Billy, you're not really doing well. And normally, a lot of people out there may not want to hear those words, but I just wanted to hear those words just so I knew that somebody knew that I wasn't doing well and we could start building myself back up. Because if you were intelligent enough to see that I wasn't doing well fundamentally, then I think you would be intelligent enough to start guiding me principally to help me start getting into the right direction. So that was just like the biggest relief I've ever had in that scenario. And so then I started seeing her. I started seeing getting a little bit better, a little bit not so better at the same time. And it was a long road. This was when I was 22. And it took me 2.5 years to really get myself somewhat back to where I was. 2.5 years is what it took. So I was convinced to do personal training. So I am a personal trainer as well. I went through the personal training school. And in that school, that was the first time ever that somebody started talking to me about nutrition, about potentially like wheat in our country being bred in such a manner that it can be inflammatory for us. And I was like, wait a second, I've eaten bread every single meal for my entire life up until this day right now. And you're gonna tell me that it could potentially be harmful for my health. And once I heard that, it really like opened the doors of my mind. It completely blew off everything that I thought what health was at that time. I was starting to learn about organic food, which is going to be some of my tips. I started to learn about the chemicals and the chemical insults that are happening from a bunch of different places in our society. And I started to just learn about health and how to fundamentally strengthen your body from a health standpoint to keep you healthy going longer. Back to the story, and then we'll get to those tips. I came back with my personal training certificate, started working for that chiropractor. I then had a client that was like, hey, there's this really great chiropractor that I see as well. And I had this shoulder issue that wasn't going away. Maybe you should check the chiropractor out. So I went there, I told him about my adrenal issues first time, and he just adjusted me, and I did a workout, and it happened to be a chiropractor that worked with sports people, which was really good for me. He was working with a lot of the Bears players at the time. And so he really helped me out fundamentally to start getting me structured and straightened, because skateboarding is very imbalanced. It's a lot of this movement with your hips. And so all the time I was doing this and overtraining, up with one side, down with the other side, which is flexion of the left hip, extension of the right hip, and it really jacked my spine up. So fortunately, I found chiropractors at an early age when I was 14, when I could barely walk from all the skateboarding, and I had been going and very comfortable with them for that point. And then the third time I went and saw him, he's like, well, I have a nutritionist here, and that nutritionist radically changed my life. She helped me with supplementation, with dietary modifications, with really helping on honing in a lot of these toxins, viral burdens that I had, the immune system challenges, and everything like that, because having all that stuff in your body can really compromise you. And at that scenario, why I was feeling all that anxiety, the depression, and the lack of energy, and just not being myself, being irritable, and all these things that were definitely not me at my core, were all because my body was such a sewage place for toxins that I couldn't function normally. So this is why when I do speak, and a lot of you guys may not have hung out with me, I'm very particular about my diet. I choose things very wisely, and I happen to do a bunch of different things that help me with my health, because I know what it feels like to not have your health. And I know what it feels like to feel like you could potentially die from not being well. And it's really not a good feeling. So I hope that that never happens to any of you guys, and I hope that this message actually gets to you guys. And it's kind of emotional that I'm just standing here doing it, because you know, I'm still here right now, which is really positive, and I'm able to hopefully pass on this message to you guys so that you guys or your friends or your family will never have to experience anything that I've experienced at the age of 22, when you should be having the time of your life and you're in your prime, because I was for surely not in the time of my life or in my prime. I was absolutely done. I didn't want to even live anymore. And so at that point, when I started getting better, it was the best thing, best feeling after 2.5 years of putting very, very strictly hard work into myself, into my body. And the last thing I didn't address at an early time stage at this was my mindset on things, which is so super crucial, because how you think about things, how you interpret things are radically important by how it's going to digest and create your life. Because your life is just your life, right? And it's your interpretation of your life that changes how you perceive what's happening. There's a lot of sayings in the personal development world that life can either be happening to you or life can be happening for you, depending on how you perceive it, which is pretty powerful, because a rock sitting on the street is just a rock. If you stub your toe on that rock, you could have just stubbed your toe and maybe it was slowing you down in order to prevent you from going into something further, or you could think of it as the rock is insulting me, and then that's more of a personal issue. And the mindset is so incredibly important. And so these scenarios, really taking myself from the absolute bottom of my health, not thinking that I was gonna live too much longer, all the way up to where I am today, and I still feel like I have a lot of ways and work to go once you start understanding this, has really brought me insight and inspired me then to go and get my master's in human nutrition and functional medicine from the University of Western States, because I was so into food, supplements, dietary needs, lifestyle, mental fortitude, that can really create this pillar of health, because all that stuff is an accumulation. Whether you choose to do it or not, you're still accumulating. If you don't choose to have a positive mindset, that doesn't mean that you're excused. If you don't choose to have a positive, healthy diet, that doesn't mean you're excused. You're just gonna have a surprise later in life that's gonna be like, oh my gosh, I ran into this illness, or I ran into this disease, or this is happening to me. Similar to what happened to me, I didn't know that I was choosing those things, but I was choosing those things. So you want to be as conscious as possible, and that's why I'm here, to hopefully enlighten you guys, to help you guys change your future. So now we're gonna go over some of my top tips to help you guys that really help me and broaden my spectrum and really change my life and my health around, which are going to start with my number one thing is going to be to eat organic food. And I know some of you guys are thinking organic food is expensive, but let me just tell you something. Nothing is more expensive than not feeling well. There is something in your life that you can change or shift or cut out to give you a little bit extra money to buy the organic versions, especially of the Dirty Dozen, which are the 12 top foods that are gonna be the most pesticide created foods, that are sprayed the most, that can really affect your health. And then you can also check out the Clean 15. If you don't choose to go organic in those Clean 15, they are going to be more okay, because they have harder shells. So think of things like blueberries, strawberries. If they spray pesticides on those, you're eating them. An avocado, if they spray a pesticide on it, you cut off the shell. A banana, you take off the peel. I'm not saying that I support pesticides, because they're actually pretty detrimental to your health. There's a lot of case studies that are linking pesticide use with multiple different lymph cancers. So they are pretty toxic things. They destroy the mitochondria of our cells, which is basically the ability of our cells to be able to produce energy. And so I know some of you guys may be thinking, I don't know the difference between organic and non-organic food. So here is going to be the difference. Organic food cannot have GMOs. A GMO is going to be a genetically modified organism. And so the purpose of GMOs are twofold. Number one, a GMO may be to be able to yield more crop. Typically, it's going to be for profit purposes. Number two, it's also going to be spliced to be able to handle a higher dose of pesticides in the gene code. So GMOs, and there's a lot of controversy around them, and I know where I stand personally because I really support my own health. And so nothing that is controversial to me is going to serve me potentially. I'm not putting controversial things in my body, and GMOs are definitely controversial. And so when you have a higher dosage of pesticides, you're going to be exposed more to those genes. And if you're genetically modifying something, our body is very intelligent. Yes, it will break it down, but it knows what food it was designed to break down. It does not know when you start modifying, let's say, a tomato to be genetically modified. Now it's got to change gene code. It's not the same tomato that we were originally designed to digest. Also, when you're eating organic food, there can be no synthetic pesticides, which can be linked to lymphoma and leukemia like we talked about. No Roundup herbicides linked to kidney disease, breast cancer, and birth defects. No ingredients laced with residues from the neurotoxin hexane. No sewage sludge, human waste contaminated with endocrine disruptors and heavy metals. No growth promoting antibiotics contributing to weight gain and antibiotic resistance. And no ractopamine drug residues that are banned in dozens of countries. And that's from the FDA regulated organic stamp. So, in my personal opinion, I would not want to eat those. And think about how often you eat food. It's 3, 4, 5, maybe 2, whatever you guys do out there, a day. And you do that over many, many years. Now you can see how the accumulation could really come into play when you're talking about where you're sitting at today in your health. That is why I think it's so vitally important for you guys to make conscious choices today, why I'm here with you right now. And so if you guys do want to see the dirty dozen compared to the clean 15, you can definitely check out this list right here. You can definitely pause and check out some of the other things that are highest in pesticides and will affect your health the most. Additionally, organic food mandates that the crops are going to be rotated around so that you guys can get higher nutrient content from those crops. So if you guys do want to check out this chart, we can check this out right here. This is going to be conventional versus non-conventional. Conventional basically means you can farm the same food in the same field over and over again, which is going to strip the soil of the mineral content. So if you just check out the snap beans, we're looking at a calcium of 40 compared to the conventional farming at 15. Then just check out like the potassium of 100 compared to 30. If you want to check out the cabbage potassium at 148 compared to 53. If you want to go ahead and check out the manganese in lettuce of 170 basically, compared to 1 in the conventional. And then you also want to check out the tomatoes, which have an iron content of 1900 compared to 1 in the conventional tomatoes. These minerals are going to be vital for your health. They help make up healthy cells because everything that you eat makes up your body. The good news is every couple months to a year, depending on what organ, the body is going to churn the tissue over. So if you start eating healthy today, which is I'm hoping to inspire some of you guys to make some dietary changes, you will start having a healthier body going forward because you're going to start making up the internals. I think we kind of fraction away from our bodies are made up of what we eat. If we eat bad food that don't have high minerals, vitamins, nutrients, we have pesticides, chemicals, our body is going to be made up of those compounds. If we go ahead and change that and start eating proper nutrients and biodiverse foods, we are going to start changing our body. So that's what I'm trying to hammer home with you guys for eating organic foods. Number 1. Number 2, I'm going to suggest eating nutrient-dense foods. Nutrient-dense foods are going to be a lot of vegetables. If you're going to eat a broad spectrum, rainbow color vegetables is going to be the best for you guys because rainbow colors are going to benefit you the most because they all have different phytonutrients. Each color of vegetable is going to have different phytonutrients because that is going to be what makes up the colors. So phytonutrients are essential. They have a ton of antioxidants in them to help you guys reduce your radical load because we are exposed to a lot of toxins on a daily basis living in the country we do right now, and this is going to help you be healthier. And I know a lot of you guys out there are addicted to caffeine and sugar. However, the reality of caffeine and sugar is you are causing your body to produce cortisol in order to power your body, which is a diminishing return, meaning if I drink a cup of coffee today, maybe 2, I'm gonna get a certain amount of cortisol output. Maybe in 2 months from now, that 2 cups of coffee that I drank, I don't feel the same effect anymore. Now you're gonna need 3 cups of coffee. Then you're gonna need 4 cups of coffee. The last thing you ever want to do is burn out your adrenal glands because they produce an amazing amount of energy. They produce cortisol. They help regulate so many different rhythms throughout the body. The last thing you want to do is continue to stimulate them on a daily basis to pump out more cortisol to power your body. You want to be powered by the nutrients of your food. You want to be powered by high quality saturated fats that your body breaks down and is more dependent on fats and high quality carbohydrates than it is on caffeine and sugar. And sugar is basically just like a spike and then a drop, and then you're hungry, spike and drop. And doing that is really not beneficial for your body. You want this even keeled throughout the day, which is gonna come from having this food that I'm talking about. The next thing I'm gonna talk about is going to be to avoid as many toxins as possible. Toxins, and I'm gonna point this graphic out, which is an amazing depiction for all of you ladies out there that put on makeup and other hair care, body care, and beauty care products. We're looking at just the known chemicals that are in here. If we're looking at the shampoo, we have average number of chemicals is gonna be 15. And the side effects are going to include neurological damage in fetuses, irritability, and possible eye damage. In eyeshadows, we have 26 different chemicals, with some of the side effects linked to cancer, infertility, hormone disruption, which we absolutely do not want to do, and damage to body's organs. We have lipstick, 33 chemicals, nail varnish, 31 chemicals, fake tan, 22 chemicals, hairspray, 11 chemicals, deodorant, which we'll talk about in a second, 32 chemicals, possible side effect, organ irritation, hormone disruption, blush, 16, foundation, 24, perfume, 250 different chemicals in perfume, sperm damage linked to cancer, organ irritants, hormone disruption, and then body lotion, 32. And so the compound effect comes back into play that if you do not read your labels, you are not conscious of this. Now may be a time to start becoming conscious of this, because all of these things on a daily basis are gonna start adding up. I don't want you guys to start adding these things up, not even knowing this over a very long period of time, and then all of a sudden you run into a health issue. You wanna start addressing it now. I really want to point out that deodorants, especially antiperspirant deodorants, are going to go under your armpits. Under your armpits have lymph ducts, which are going to detoxify you to be able to remove toxins. So if you've been putting aluminum in your lymph nodes, this is probably not the best scenario over a long period of time. And if you're going to switch away to a natural deodorant, it's going to start being a little bit hard because your body's going to start perspiring a little bit more. So if you happen to go on a vacation, this may be a great time for you to kind of like put some of these things down and to start detoxify you when you're not in a public scenario, because number one, you can smell a little bit, and number two, you could sweat a little bit more because now your body's going to be ridding out some toxins. So I'm just going to give you one quick exercise that we did learn in my functional medicine seminars to help you guys out move toxins if you don't work out, because working out is super crucial, but you absolutely must do at least something to move your lymph. And it's just basically going to look like this. You're basically going to bounce up and down to move lymph, and you're going to go like this, virtually like a jumping jack, but I'm not actually doing it. I'm just bouncing up and down. And by me pushing like this and jumping up and down, it's gonna move my lymph and it's gonna make me feel better. So just by doing this on a daily basis, maybe for like a minute or two, is really gonna start moving your lymph. And moving lymph is important for detoxifying yourself, and it removes toxins from the body. So working out is really the only way to push lymph tissue, which is gonna be another high quality thing that I am going to recommend for your health. Even if it's just a short period of time, you can just do like 10 minutes worth of exercise. It doesn't have to be anything too crazy. You just need to move and sweat. That is so incredibly important. And do compound exercises like squats, lunges, maybe pull-ups if you can, assisted pull-ups, push-ups. Those 4 exercises are going to build foundations to health. You want to have high quality water that is going to be filtered. You do not want to be drinking tap water because it's going to have chlorine, bleach, chemicals, heavy metals, and other things like that that you do not want to consume every single day. Very important to have high quality filtered water. And then finally, I'm going to recommend that you guys get out in nature. Vitamin D from the sun is so incredibly important for your immune system. It helps you be a better person. And then the last thing, for everybody out there that may be wondering, where do I get some of these products? I'm going to suggest that you check out 100%pure.com. Their products are incredibly amazing. They smell awesome. They are very high quality. I've been using them for many years now, and they are great products to help you guys out. And then finally, your mindset. You have to start thinking about, how do I react to situations? What are my daily thoughts? Where am I thinking and putting my energy and focus? Am I worrying and being stressed out, or am I calm, at peace, and positive? Because those two scenarios are very different, and your body is going to respond to whatever your mind is thinking. So you need to start becoming conscious of, how do I think? What do I think about? go? What are my thoughts for the most part? Where am I at today? This is going to be incredibly important to help put you at a place of ease. If you are constantly worrying, it's going to put you in a stress state. When you are stressed, your body is in that fight or flight that we talked about earlier, which means your body is not focused on digesting. It also means that your body is basically ramped up and running. And then the final thing is that it is compromising and storing your immune system. Think about a time when you guys have been under a stress scenario. Maybe it had been a day, 2 days, 3 days, a week, 2 weeks, and then you come down off that stressful scenario, and then what happens? Boom, you get sick. And you're like, whoa, what happened? Like, you know, I don't know what happened. Your immune system was stressed, your body was stressed, it was compromised, and then what happened is your body was able to get infected by whatever that was. So being at peace with yourself, whether that be meditation for you, whether that be prayer, whether that be going for a walk, whatever the meditation is for clearing your mind and focusing on the positivity of life that has to offer. There are so many things that every single one of you guys can be grateful for. You just have to start thinking about them and appreciating them on a daily basis, being more kind to people and being more kind to yourself. And of course, high quality sleep is so vitally important, because during sleep, not only do you rest, digest, your immune system also rests as well. So you need high quality sleep. Also, to detoxify your glymphatics, so it's actually lymph nodes in your brain. So you want to start detoxifying your brain through quality sleep. So I hope this helped, guys. Reduce your toxic load, eat quality food, think positively, exercise a little bit, and get out there and play some Pokemon Go. I love you guys. I hope that you guys are taking this time to really start reflecting and to really start becoming a healthier version of you, because that's all I want you guys to be: positive, healthy, and wealthy as well. So I'm gonna see you guys out on the next video. Peace. I just want to take a moment and sincerely thank all of my Patreon members, everybody that has taken their subscription to the next level and chosen to support me on this platform. I greatly appreciate you guys. As a growing channel and really trying to grow and improve as much as I possibly can, I really appreciate the extra support. You guys mean the absolute world to me. I cannot wait to connect with you soon, and I appreciate you guys all for being a part of the Trainer Club. I will see you guys out on the next video.